Okay, so the recording has started. Our first order of business is whether to approve the minutes from our last meeting. All those in favor of approving the minutes, just raise your hand. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so thank you. Second order of business is to introduce Anne. Anne is obviously a resident of Shutesbury who's very enthusiastic about the things that we're doing in this committee and expressed an interest in kind of helping out with things having to do with the community garden, as well as has some ideas which towards the end of the meeting I will provide her with an opportunity to share. So welcome, Anne. I'm glad that you are here and interested in what we're doing.
Can you, can we just back up a second? Can Annie
Sure.
tell us how long you've lived here and what your, interests are in
Great.
this? And
Sure. I have lived here. Oh, it's such a good question. I think that I'm in my 6th year, maybe moving in on 7. And Barbara and I met through the anti-racism book group, and Christine, who's on camera, I met you once there. And I'm really interested in this work, especially the connections that you're making to thinking about food insecurity and the larger, some of the larger potential of the community garden. And then I just started thinking about, some other things that the recreation committee, that it would be really fun to think about doing in the town. So
I nominated her to be a part of the committee.
Well, I kind of,
How does that work?
well, I checked out how that works. The way it works is the select board has to approve an additional member. And then the select board then has to say that Anne will be said member. So at this point, Anne, anybody can come to the meeting. Anyone who's not a member cannot vote, and they can participate at the discretion of the chair. So this particular chair is going to provide that discretion with everything that we'll be talking about. Your input will be very valued. So that's how that works. So once, I don't know exactly what the timing is, but I asked Grace about that because I was not aware of how the process worked. So
I have an in on that select board, so
oh, that's right. Okay, well then.
I can find out what the,
Okay, that would be fantastic.
I think he can put it on the agenda.
Oh, okay, great.
I think the select board can, I
Mhm.
think that's how it works. And then
Okay,
Becky puts it on the agenda, I think.
sounds good. Let's see. The first agenda item, somehow or other, I ended up writing pagoda instead of pavilion in the agenda, but it's the library pavilion. In the new library, Marianne is hoping to include a pavilion and was wondering if we would co-sponsor it with her with and I'm sorry, I'm not remembering what the funding source was, but it turns out that it would not be eligible. So that is now off of the agenda.
It's not eligible for what reasons?
For
Why isn't
whatever
it?
the funding, she didn't say, but whatever,
Oh.
I'm not remembering what the funding source was, but it turns out that the pavilion doesn't fall within the purview of that fund's, well, within their purview.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
having too many purviews in that sentence. Okay. So the other two, it's really nice to see everybody. It's been a long time.
I know.
Yeah.
Where's Elaine?
Elaine is still off on her trip. So she comes back, I believe, tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they've been off hiking. So she will return. The next agenda item was the beginning our discussions of the agreements for the community garden. We're still on hold, as you probably know, until we know what's happening with the library. We really aren't able to move forward. which means that the garden will likely not actually be operational until spring of 2023, I guess that would be. We'll have to see if things get settled, how quickly we can get things ready in the spring, but at least for now, we should probably assume that we'll be later rather than earlier.
And
But
is that okay with the CP, see the committee?
I believe so. Elaine was going to be talking to them, and my understanding is that that's fine. There's no deadline on that money, but we'll have to confirm with her. She was had said that she would meet with them to draw up whatever agreements we would need to with them in terms of the dispersal of that money, because it
Okay.
will be, but it can't be used for anything else. So my understanding is that that's fine, but we'll get, you
So
know,
we
her
can just
to-
postpone it, eternally until the library happens?
That's a good question. I doubt eternally, but hopefully we'll have some idea of what's happening with the library.
Okay.
So one of the things that we had down as a activity to do over the winter, so I thought, well, we can at least do that one, is to come up with what the guidelines would be for the library. So hopefully everybody got what I sent out. It's just it's very it's drafty, not super drafty, but what I did, as I said in the email, was I went online, I looked at the agreements for the guidelines rather, I had the Pelham and the Amherst, and then there was this site that was just kind of good practices for community gardens, and they gave some examples of things that are in the guidelines. One of the major things that I noticed about them was that there was kind of a, for lack of a better term, a higgledy-piggledy quality to them. So it was clear that something happened, and then they added something to it so that that wouldn't happen again. So especially the one about cleaning up at the end of the season, they all had big capital letters or bold letters or oversized letters saying you really have got to clean up your garden at the end of the season. So clearly that is a problem. It's nice to know going into it. Yeah, Christine?
Thank you. Yes, I did get that, Barbara. Thank you. Also, in the very beginning, previous year that they need to register if they are a previous year and in good standing. So obviously people
Yes.
have not complied.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and they all had that kind of wording in them with the dates and with the ability for somebody to renew. There were also a lot of things about and only having one person in the household as the signee, so other people could then come and work there, but work in the garden, but that only one person would be the one who is who signs the contract. I didn't put anything in here about children. There were constraints on children coming in if the parents weren't there. I didn't put that in because it felt unfriendly. But I don't know what the problems are that these gardens had, whether it was a health and safety issue of unattended children in the gardens, I don't know, but I did not put that in. So, I hope you've had a chance to glance at it. Were there any things that kind of stood out like that shouldn't be in there, or things that should be in there that we don't have in there? I figure this will just be a working document for us for a while.
I thought it might be good to have something about, or we need to talk a little bit about how, I think we need to communicate about us postponing this to the, through the town newsletter or some way sort of let people know that we're thinking about waiting for the library, because the last thing people heard, I think, would have been a town meeting. The town meeting approved us getting the $30,000, but there's been sort of dead air because we were not sure we were going to do it. But I think maybe if we can figure out, maybe not this meeting, but another meeting, what do we want to say in a little blurb to put out in the town newsletter that about where we are with the gardens.
That actually is on our agenda for today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
great.
we had 4 agenda items. One was
Yeah.
about the pavilion. The second was about this, and I'm perfectly fine putting this aside. There's no hurry about it. I just thought it would be nice to be working on something. And then
Yeah.
the other one was, what do we want to say? And I'm happy to write it up, but I was hoping that we could talk about that. So
Yeah, because it sort of feels like I read this, but I don't feel like, because it might not be for a year and a half, or
Right.
it felt like just a little weird to work on it
Yeah.
when it's.
Okay.
That's my feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just like wanting to do something concrete towards
Yeah.
the garden, but I would like to get something into our town. So is that all right with everybody if we just move to that and start? Good, okay. We just start
I
talking
mean,
about
I don't mean
what we'll say.
to sort of push aside.
No, that was
whole
it's
thing,
on the
but-
agenda. No, you're absolutely right. The one thing is certainly going to be to explain why the garden will be delayed.
Right.
And then how do we frame that?
And I think also there was some, I mean, I heard a little buzz around town about why do we need community gardens? Like, I think it might be good to sort of say why we thought this was a good idea. For people who are saying, well, I can plant in my backyard, or, and maybe something about, for the greater good of the community, and however we want to talk about it. But I think communication is always really good. And if we are sort of open about what our idea was initially, was to, maybe open it up to people who don't have access to good food. I mean, there's nowhere to get food in Shutesbury. In the anyway, I don't know how we want to say that, but
Well, I think we can go back to our proposal because we had some pretty good reasons in there about why we would need it. And I think everybody kind of suggested some things. I think Christine, you had taken the lead on writing that section about, why we need it. And I think we can just pull directly from there about why we need it. So maybe just a brief summary of what we presented at the town meeting would be appropriate. Just kind of a what it is and why, answering the question of why, and then get into why the garden is being delayed.
Are you going to draft that, Barbara?
Yeah, I will draft it.
And when is the next newsletter? Do you know?
That I don't know.
I think it comes out quarterly, right? So
We
there's a
just-
winter one, a fall one. I think they just had the fall one. So
Yeah, we just got one.
so the winter, I think winter.
Okay.
And also there are some people in town, I don't know if others of you have heard about this, sort of the people who want to say no to everything in town. They don't think there should be a community preservation, that we should use that money for things in town. They think that's a waste of money.
Oh, well, it's
So-
too late.
I know, but I mean, I think we can sort of say why this is, part of that, because it has a recreational
Yeah,
section. It's not a building, it's not preserving something that's already built, but it's, for the improvement of the community, kind of.
yes.
So I can't remember what was in that section, but are you looking at it right now, Barbara?
No, I'm not, but I could be.
I just saw you.
I've got all kinds of things sitting here. I have a very messy desk.
That's a sign of a very creative person. I just want you to know.
Oh, thank heavens. I was hoping it would be a sign of something. Okay, the project is one of the highlighted uses of CPA funds as written. Recreational use, active or passive recreational use, including but not limited to the use of land for community gardens,
There you go.
specifically about that.
So you'll explain based on our proposal, why we wanted to do this and add something about the delay and
Yes,
explain, like, Of course,
Mhm.
BZ, don't those people who don't want to say no to this also don't want a library?
Yes, exactly. And it's, I think if we're tying ourselves to the library, we're going to be sort of, you know,
Yeah.
it makes us vulnerable, our project a little vulnerable, I think.
Mm.
I mean, I think we should do it. I'm not against it. I just think we should have a little proactive, you know,
Yeah.
whatever language
Yeah,
around it.
I mean, I don't know the politics around that, but I think that it's actually because they want to put the library actually is getting in our way. Because if it weren't for the library, we would have already broken ground. We would have had the fence up. We would have had, you know, our rock clearing and all
Right.
of that good stuff that we're going to do with all those rocks.
Mhm.
All of that would be behind us. So the uncertainty has to do with the siting of the library. So we're really
Right.
not tying our fortunes to it so much as until we know where the library is going to be, we can't move forward because it's going to affect the siting of the garden because
Mhm.
if it does go behind town hall, the priority would be the siting of the library, not the siting of the garden.
Mhm.
There's plenty of room, and I've actually kind of just eyeballed it, and I think that looking at where the library is proposed, we will have to push the garden down a ways, but it's actually flatter as you go further away from the town hall. So
Mm.
it actually works out. I think whether the library is there or not, I think we're going to want to push the garden further down.
You know, I went to, I have friends and family on Martha's Vineyard, and I went to the new library in Chilmark, and it is really beautiful. It might be West
Mhm.
Tisbury. I'm not sure. It's right in that. I can't remember which one it was, but they had a garden that had a path, and I was thinking, oh, it was really nice. You know, there was a path from the library to the garden in sort of a circular way, and I took some photos, which I can
Oh,
share with
great.
you guys.
Yeah, do.
Because I was thinking if the library is sited and then the garden, it'd be nice to have a way to get from the library to the gardens, you know, like there,
Absolutely.
and it created a really nice sort of open land air, a little like I don't want to say a lawn, but they made it a meadow. They made it a pollinator meadow, which is really cool too. They're not mowing it, but there was a path.
Mhm.
So I know that wasn't in our original idea, but now that if we link ourselves to the library, we might want to actually have a physical link to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
might be nice. Anyway, I'll send you pictures because they had a
Thank you.
really nice outdoor area.
Mhm.
I think in, you know, pandemic times, which I think we're in right now for probably the rest of our lives, they had outdoor meeting spaces that were really nice. And the garden was really a part of that. Like it was, so it sort of integrated the two things together, the library, then an outdoor meeting area, and then the gardens. So anyway, I just was very inspired when I saw it.
Yeah.
I thought, so that's something we could do in the interim is look at other people's libraries and maybe even our committee could take a field trip to go look at,
Ooh.
you know, like some of the newer libraries just in Western Mass and see what they've done with their outdoor areas. You know, I think I know that Wendell has a nice,
Mhm.
I've been there, but there are quite a few new ones. So
Do you have a place for us to stay on Martha's Vineyard that won't cost anything?
I'll see how my cousin feels about that. I don't know.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
I have a tent.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah.
I mean,
I think that something that we will want to do is brainstorm some ideas about what we'd like with the library. I'm going to take the liberty of saying one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, which came about from a book that Anne lent me about a project in England called Incredible Edibles, where
cool.
the background of it was a town outside of Manchester where they lost all of the textile jobs. And so the town was quickly plunged into really severe poverty. and a food desert. And someone planted beans all along one of the abandoned buildings, and anybody could come and pick the beans. And that's how
Cool.
Incredible Edibles started. It's about planting things in places where people can come and just pick for anybody.
That's cool.
And I learned that there's an organization in Northampton. I just read about this today called Help Yourself, and they plant fruit trees in different places. And while I don't know whether we'll want to plant fruit trees, I was thinking, well, you know, we could grow beans on the outside of the fence. We could put herbs all around the outside of the fence, and they could just be, if you want some, take some. So I think there's all kinds of ways to increase, to get people to come, to increase a sense of community, to have this be not just for the people who have gardens inside the fence, but for the whole community. And especially if we do get to be close to the library, and with some of the ideas that we've talked about before in terms of working in conjunction with the organization in polio, getting involved with farmers markets. One of the things that I put in the you may or may not have, had a chance to see, was one of the guidelines or rules in one of them was that if you don't pick all your produce, and you don't want your produce, then you have to donate it. And I thought that was really, really cool. Because then that way, if someone starts it and they're like, oh, I've got so many tomatoes, I'm just going to let them rot on the vine. You don't get to let them rot on the vine. We can pick them and I'm sure find a place to donate. Yeah, Christine?
Yes, that's a good idea. Also, how about the tools? Are we purchasing tools that go into a shed?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have to be responsible to make sure they're not ripped off, not being taken care of. Like, shouldn't people just bring their own tools, and that way we don't have to worry about it? I don't know. What do you guys think?
That's a really good question. When I was reading some of these, I got wondering about whether supplying tools was going to make sense or not. Wheelbarrows, yes, because people can't just bring their own wheelbarrows, but the tools themselves.
I did a community garden when I lived in Chicago, and we did have to bring our own tools, and it was tricky at the beginning of the year in the spring when you needed to rake and things like that. And maybe this won't happen as much in Shutesbury, but in Chicago, like, people wanted to bike to the community garden. So it's a little hard to put your rake and your shovel on the back of your bike. Not impossible. So it's a really good question, because I do think too, is it something that, has a socioeconomic impact if everybody is expected to bring their own tools?
Well, Northampton, the community gardens there has a shed, and that everyone's given like, even the wheelbarrows are locked up on a chain, and everyone's given a combination lock. The number on the combination lock to get in and I don't know what's in their shed because I'm not a member, so I don't know, but it doesn't, I don't know if it hasn't really been a problem, I don't think. So I don't know. It would
I'll
depend.
ask people who I know. Yeah, Christine?
So maybe something we could do, if someone has a hardship and they can't supply their own tools, that maybe we could have a book that, like a sign-in book.
Mm-hmm.
When people come, they can sign it or leave a note regarding, I'm struggling with tools, and maybe we could have a borrowing system for those particular people. But I don't know. I'm feeling uncomfortable that we have to supply these things and then we have to monitor them and make sure they're not abused. I don't know if that's just too much. I don't know. What do you
I
guys
think we could start small. We don't have to have it initially and see what happens.
Good idea. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now whether we actually had tools in the budget. I was thinking that we did. I know we had the wheelbarrow. I think we had sort of a miscellaneous fund that was going to cover things like that. But starting off with people bringing their own and then see what,
That's what
if
I
that's
would
going to work.
Yeah,
That certainly make life a lot easier.
yeah.
Yeah, the way I remember it, and I mean, I'm not looking this up, I'm just remembering, so I could be wrong, is that we said we weren't going to build a shed the first year necessarily. So if we're not building a
Right.
shed the first year, we must not have been thinking we were going to be having
Yeah, you're
tools.
right.
No, actually, I'm looking at the calendar. We were going to purchase the garden carts and tools, the picnic table and the shed
Oh.
in March 2022.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, totally wrong.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
have the budget for all that. That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope we get to do this project.
I know.
Yeah, in our lifetime even.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, what I will do is I'll take some of these things. I'll probably end up putting more in than we might want in a write-up for our town. But basically on this is to just remind people about the community gardens, sort of why we're having it, why it is part of the community preservation. And then, talk about how, well, you've had to wait, here's some ideas, and that we welcome ideas about the commons, whatever, the common space. Does that, and then I'll send it out and you all can please, add, delete, change, whatever. And then I will find out what the date is. I'll check with Grace, I guess is who I check with, about what the deadline is for getting something in for our town.
Great.
And I think we might want to consider, I mean, if everybody is willing to kind of pitch in on this, but having a little something in every single newsletter. I mean, we could have like a little gardening tip.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, we could just put some little thing in there about, at this time of year. And in fact, already when we were thinking it's the winter, I was thinking, how is this going to start? Like, well, here it is, winter, and it's so fun to think about growing things. But to kind of start off thinking,
Yeah.
oh, this is exciting and fun and something that we can all learn from. So,
Or
Okay.
maybe it would be nice to put something. I was thinking maybe we want to do this in the next town newsletter. Is the Janowitz land finally became part of Kestrel Trust,
yeah.
and we had been talking about that. So Anne, we had been doing a whole trails thing before we got diverted by gardens, and we'd been waiting. We knew that Julian Janowitz had died, and we were waiting for. It took 2 years because his son, I think, was not up for this Kestrel Trust thing, but the money, finally, the land finally got transferred over to the Kestrel Trust. And it's, 5 miles of these amazing trails. I've been hiking on it all fall. And I'd love to take people over there and just show you what it is sometime. Because it's really cool. And there's a beautiful overlook, and the young couple that bought the house are sculptors from New York, and they've redone the lighting because a bunch of the sculptures light up, and they've brought those back, and they'd really sort of fallen in disrepair, a lot of them, because he was in his 90s when he died. But anyway, it might be fun to have like every quarter have something from the recreation committee, and it could be something about like the trails, or it could be the garden. If the garden's sort of dead in the water, we could just sort of be more visible through talking about the trails. So anyway, I'm just very excited about this Kestrel Trust land. Have you guys walked on it? Has everybody?
No,
walked on it?
I don't
Yeah.
even know where it is. I would love to go there.
I want to go.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to lead our committee there someday.
That'd be
We can
lovely. Yeah,
find,
it is beautiful.
You've been, Barbara?
I've been there twice. The first time Elaine took me there, and then Anne and I went for a walk there.
Oh,
It's-
great.
it's
Did you
really
go up
gorgeous.
did you go up and do the overlook?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
Cool.
So,
It's-
so that actually leads into the final. So I think, are we all set then in terms of me writing something up, and I'll get it out to everybody, and you can all edit it as you see fit. The final agenda item is basically about new ideas. And Anne had some ideas. I've had some ideas. You all may have some ideas, but coming up with things, maybe one-off events. So Anne came up with a couple of them, which I'll just let you say what they are. I've thought of a couple of sort of one-off events, but if we just kind of thinking about what our interests are, what other people's interests are, inviting people to do something, and why don't you explain your events, the ones that you've been thinking about doing, and then I'll stop talking.
Well, BZ's comments about the Janowitz land really feed into what I was thinking about, which is, these kind of light touch but led events that might just happen once in a while. As somebody who I know some of you have been in Shutesbury for a lot longer than me, and I keep hearing different things. Someone said you have to live here for 26 years before you're not considered new anymore, but I still feel a little new. And so part of it is very selfish about like how to meet people. But one thing I was saying to Barbara is that last year during COVID, I treated myself by buying cross-country skis, and I've never done it. And so it would be great just to have a workshop for beginners who want to learn how to cross-country ski, and then maybe they'll continue and go out together sometime. So I know there are a lot of expert cross-country skiers in Shutesbury, but it's like one of those things like, hey, come and just learn, and then you might meet some people and you might continue to do this. A couple of years ago, I live on Montague Road, and a couple of years ago, and I think Mary Ann organized this, there was a fern walk. So one of my neighbors led this fern walk, and we just started on one end of Montague Road, and he just led it down and pointed out about 15 different ferns, and we had a little handout. It was just like a Saturday morning. It was so fun. And then people, I came back to my house and I was like, oh my goodness, I have like 6 of these ferns in my yard. So BZ, when you were saying that about, taking people, I know maybe this wasn't your intention, but I could see like somebody just doing that and pointing out native plants, or maybe talking about that beautiful rock formation, it doesn't all have to have an educational bent, but I just love the idea of, like Barbara said, these one-off events that are both social and allow people to learn more about the outdoors here in Shutesbury.
Yeah, we have in town some great resources because 2 naturalists who've lived here a long time work at the Hitchcock Center.
Yeah.
And I was hiking with them on Saturday or Sunday morning. And this is a group that Elaine and I've been involved with for a long time. And Susan Loring Wells, she knows every plant in the woods. She's amazing. And there's also somebody in town who's a mushroom expert, who Mary Ann had her do a mushroom identification thing. I don't remember her name, but
yeah. Oh, sorry, BZ. I was just gonna say too, the other one I thought of is my neighbors are really big birders. And so it would be fun to do like a bird watching thing too.
Yeah. Well,
again, stuff that people might not know anything about. So
yeah.
like,
Colleen Kelly is her name, and Helen Ann Septon. They're both excellent birders.
okay.
Like Helen Ann hears a bird and she immediately knows what it is.
Yeah, that's how Peg and Mike are.
Oh yeah, I know them.
Yeah.
Peg and Mike Ross. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of people who are good birders. That would be fun. I think.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Christine?
Snowshoeing.
Yes.
I'm a big snowshoer. I'm happy to lead people on a snowshoeing event.
You suppose that we might, I'm not sure the best way to get in to let people know, but suppose we went with something like a snowshoeing, and then the cross-country ski actually isn't going to be that difficult, because we met Colleen on a fundraiser for the Amersfoort Survival Center, and she was one of the people who came on this walk. And she said that she and a friend create a big cross-country ski circle in her field or somebody's field. And so it would be a perfect place for people to come and learn how to cross-country ski, because, it wouldn't be just going off with people behind you and people in front of you. It would be about being able to get feedback. So we might want to think about doing something like that and snowshoeing this winter. There's 2 activities right there. Yeah.
Does anybody know of places you can rent? I have my own snowshoes, but I know there were places, I want to say Northfield Mountain, that you could rent snowshoes or the Hitchcock Center. There was some place. And I don't know anything about cross-country rentals. So again, these are things that we might want to look into, because not everybody can afford.
Yeah, it's a great question, Christine.
Mm-hmm. I think it'd be great to have like a lending, you know, like if we had an event, we could ask people, like, I have more than one pair of cross-country skis. So bring your extra pair with you.
That's a good idea.
And the nice thing about snowshoeing is you don't need the boots.
Right.
With skiing, you have to have the special boots, and certain boots fit certain bindings and blah, blah, blah. But with snowshoes, you just put them on over your boots. You just wear winter boots and you boom, you know. But like I have 3 pairs of cross-country of snowshoes.
I have 2 pairs. Yeah.
So when, you know, I could bring those because I sort of collect them. Because you like in snowshoeing, you have small pairs that you can use that are like just having on, you know, you can run in them. I mean, they're so great. But then if the snow's really deep, you want your bigger ones, you know. So anyway, I think people in this group of women that Elaine and I, everybody has more than one pair. And I know that people would be happy to bring extra pairs. And it's fun to try it out before you then want to, maybe you won't like it. Then why go buy it if you don't like them, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe we could organize a day and everybody could bring an extra pair. And I think that'd be really fun.
That sounds wonderful.
How about ice skating?
They clear that on the lake.
Oh, do they really?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. They're a group of really enthusiastic pond hockey players that clear down by the beach. They clear a big skating area. And it's rare that we have a year where the lake is skatable, but we did 2 years ago. The whole lake was skatable for a long time. It didn't snow. We just had really cold. But it's more likely that you have to clear. And a lot of people got injured in that year when the lake was really, yeah. There were some head injuries and broken wrists and
Falling through the ice.
no one's done that, but that I know of.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
they
did?
Yes, that year. Wasn't it Elaine that fell on her head, or
No, that was April. April got a big,
that was
like,
the same year.
You have blood going down the back of your head. I think you better do something about that.
But the lake is awesome to utilize in the winter. There's a lot of fisher people and fires, like a whole bunch of families that utilize it.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start off? I'll put something about that in our little write-up about the garden. I didn't see this. It was brought to my attention. A woman named Katie, can't remember her last name, had something in our town saying anybody interested in outdoor, family-friendly outdoor activities. So Gail Fleischiker, she sent it to Elaine, who sent it to me. And then I wrote to this woman, Katie, saying, this sounds great. Let us know if there's any way that the Recreation Committee can help you with this, because it sounds like she's kind of interested in doing exactly these same kinds of things. So she might be a good, find out what sorts of ideas she had, if she's willing to lead some things, but I think there may be a synergy there with her as well, again, with these kind of one-off things. And like BZ said, there's so many people with so many talents in this community. It's just breathtaking. So, I'm thinking it's probably our town is probably not going to be the best way to advertise this, especially if it's in with the other things about the garden. Yeah.
The school
Newsletter. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Great. I'll depend on those of you who, I'm even more of a newcomer than Anne. So I still have 22 more years until I'm considered.
I wonder too about the website, because the tricky thing about the snow activities is that you can't plan them in advance, right? You can't say, we're gonna go snowshoeing on December 15th because you might not have any snow. So
Mm. The other
something
great-
like the website that you could update, you know,
Yeah.
quickly and get the word out.
Also, I think Mary Ann is our biggest resource because the library puts out constant,
Yes.
you know,
Oh, yes, of
activities.
course.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's our best bet, really. I think we have to,
Yes.
you
I'll
know,
talk
and
with
she'd
her.
be happy to put something out for us about a,
Yeah.
you know,
You could
Um,
forecast it, so to speak, like, you know, stay tuned for when it snows, but
yeah. I mean, I think your best bet is the, you know, January and
Post holidays.
February.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that we haven't had snow on Halloween, the year we snowed all over oh my God. That was terrible.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You remember that? Oh my Lord.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
a lot of snow.
So it
Anyway.
seems then that what we've got some really good ideas here. And now we need to move from the good ideas to actualizing them. And it sounds like a lot of them are not going to be that hard to do. The cross-country skiing one, again, of course, it requires the snow, but Colleen said they already put together that kind of track. So, you know, I don't know what it looks like, if it's just for parallel or skating, you know, cross-country ski skating, but that's definitely sounds like a very doable one, as does the snowshoeing. So at this point, yes, and we would not want to do anything before January anyway, because it's pretty unreliable. Plus November and December tend to be pretty busy months, unless somebody has walking around the pond.
Yeah.
You know, we could have perhaps we could suggest different times, and maybe, you know, those of us or others would be willing to just be there at a certain time and then do the loop around the pond, the walk up to the little overlook and down and around for anybody who's interested.
Yeah.
This is completely unrelated, but there was it was in the editorial of the paper today about trails in the area in Northampton and how there are no accessible trails. And so I don't know whether we have accessible trails or not, but I think that might be something we might want to kind of think about as well. I don't know what the cost is to making a trail accessible or where that might be, but I just want to kind of throw that out. If we think about any place where perhaps that could be done relatively easily, I think that would be a really, really great thing to do.
Yeah. Have you all been to the Silvio Conti, you know, accessible trail in Hadley?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
the only, that's sort of the only one that I know of that is
Me
really
too.
been designed as accessible trails.
Mhm.
And it's really great for
Yeah.
that. But I think that was a state project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I may look into, how you go about doing something like that, because we have such beautiful trails in places in Shutesbury, and making them accessible would be really a gift, not only to people in this town, but throughout the area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the tricky thing is we ran into when we were doing the trail thing was that so many of the trails are on private land,
Mm,
you know, coals mostly.
Yeah, yeah.
So then you run into that.
Mhm.
And that was always the
Mhm.
sort of block that we would
Yeah.
run into about.
Well,
But you know what, that mountain bike group got money from the CPC about putting in
mhm.
expanding the bike trails
Yeah.
around town. I think that would be a long way to make those trails accessible, but
Yeah. I mean, just making, you know, on that new land, on the new Kestrel land, Janowitz, is that what his name was?
yeah,
Just doing something from the parking lot to the pond, and it's flat.
yeah.
Be,
Well, that was one of those trails that the bikers wanted to do. Is the
oh,
trail that runs from Old Wendell Road, which is
Yeah.
the road that the parking lot's on.
mhm,
You know, when you go down Old Wendell Road and you take a hard left, there's a big arrow. Right there is where that trail starts and it goes to the lake.
oh, okay.
So, you know, that's a public land trail. The other, where you can sort of see the lake from the parking lot, that's private land. So that would be great if you could do it, but those people and the people that live there are very, no trespassing signs. Blah, blah, blah. They
Yeah.
do not want you walking there, so.
You just
um,
call the Kestrel Fund and just ask as a general thing what it would take for them to make a trail accessible, not even saying which trail, just ask if they've done it, what the process would be for getting funding and support for that.
Right. Well, that boardwalk that goes through the cranberry bog,
Yeah,
that had really fallen in disrepair, and that somebody, and I think it's this young couple, had put in new wood, slats on that. Unless it was Kestrel that did it, I don't know, but that would be a
Yeah.
question, who's
I'll
fixing
ask
it
them.
up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I want to be mindful of the time. It's 6 minutes of the hour. And we've gotten a lot accomplished. I'm really glad that we have some projects to be looking forward to, other than the library, or not the library, you know what I mean, the garden, because it's been frustrating not having any control over what's happening with that. But I will get something written up, and I'll get a hold of Mary Ann as well about some of the ideas that we have for snowshoeing, for cross-country skiing, and about whether she would be willing, which I'm sure she would be. Wonder whether she's got the kayaks and the life jackets for people to rent. Find out whether or not, for those who might be willing to donate their extra snowshoes, I certainly would be. Would she, well, not in the current library, but would she help us figure out a way to have a lending library of snowshoes?
that's a great idea. I mean,
yeah.
snowshoes are just easier because, like I said, you don't have to deal with
Yeah.
the boots and you don't even need poles. I mean, you
That's
can do
right.
it without,
That's right.
So
That's right.
true.
So,
Yeah.
and when you put on those snowshoes, you feel like a little child again.
Well,
It's like getting on a bike. You I can climb right up the side of that mountain if I want,
yeah.
It's a great feeling. Whereas skiing has more technique to it
Mhm.
and is a little trickier. I mean, not that it's not great and you can go faster and you can go further, but it's there's just more technique to it. And
Yeah.
it's a little tricky. People get a little frustrated, I think, because of that. Anyway.
Any
Okay.
last thoughts anybody has before we?
Next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay, next meeting, we had said that we would do the last Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. Is that still going to work for people? In which case we will start doing that, because I think we have plenty on our agenda now to just have that as a.
So say that again.
The last meeting we had agreed to the last Tuesday of the month at 4
Okay.
p.m. Does that still work for people?
That wasn't
is
today,
that-
though, was it?
Well,
November.
no, I forget why we couldn't meet last week, but yeah, this is definitely not the last Tuesday. But we would meet the last Tuesday in November.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
Sound
cool.
good? Okay,
I think that's the 30th.
Correct.
okay.
Hey,
Okay.
Yeah, so we're past Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And then in December, we'll probably end up not meeting that last Thursday because that gets all caught up in the holidays, but maybe we can toggle between the last and the first, depending on what holidays or whatever look like.
It might be after, Christmas and before New Year, so it might not be a bad.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm such an academic, I don't even know I'm retired now. Yeah, it's perfect, it's the 28th. But it's like
Yeah,
everything always shuts down between Christmas and New Year's. It's like, have a meeting, what? But yes,
I
so
don't
we
care.
can do the 28th.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. All
All
right,
right.
So we
thank you
said,
so much.
so we
Thank
said
you.
Tuesday, November 30th at 4, correct?
right.
Yes, that is correct.
All right.
And then the next one will be December 28th.
And you want me to talk to the select board about getting Ann to join? Ann, do you want to join us?
Yes, I would love to. Thanks, Peasy.
Okay. We are pushing you and then, all right. So that's my only assignment, I think, right? I'm just trying to review
Yes,
here.
I think that is correct. And then
Okay.
once I get this draft thing written up, it'll be everybody's assignment to read it, get feedback, circulate it
Okay.
among people.
All right,
Okay.
that
Make it
sounds good.
easy.
Yeah.
Windows,
Yeah,
windows.
do you want to come help me next
When,
week?
when do you want to talk?
Anytime. I'll
Okay.
text you.
I'm gonna
All right.
officially end the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so at whatever time it is.